There are 6 relay towers in Fallout 4. I've done 5 already. This is number 6. This is the full story of Relay Tower 0SC-527. I saved this one for last because it is the most tragic of all of the relay towers. As you get near to Relay Tower 0SC-527, mole rats emerge from the ground and attack. Once they are dead, you can access the terminal to activate the satellite dishes to access 3 new signals. The first is called Distress Signal. The signal gets stronger as you walk southwest towards Fallon's department store.
Hello? Anyone? I'm trapped in the jewelry safe in Fallon's. If anyone is out there, please help. What's going on out there? Oh, I felt the ground shake and nothing since. It's been 4 days, I think. If you can hear this, please let me out. There's a button underneath one of the counters in the jewelry department. Please. I'm so thirsty. Please. Hurry.
This has been a pre-recorded message.
I covered Fallon's department store in a separate video that I published a few days ago that you can watch here to get the full story of this store. But if you take the escalator down to the basement, and if you go behind the jewelry case, you find a button on the underside of the table. Upon pressing it, you hear a scraping sound. In the corner of the room by the Protectron charging station, you see that a bookcase has opened up, revealing a chamber within. Inside the chamber, we find the remains of the poor woman who placed the distress signal. Activating the ham radio will turn off the signal. This poor lady died of thirst in this secret chamber. Perhaps she ran here to seek shelter when the bombs fell. However, based on her recording, I think it's much more likely that she was actually an employee of the jewelry store here in Fallon's basement. She was likely in this secret chamber, maybe doing inventory, when she heard a loud explosion outside. In the panic and confusion, her fellow employees completely forgot about her, keeping her locked inside the chamber. There, she recorded her final message and died of thirst, surrounded by the world's riches. If you have the lockpicking perk, you can unlock each of the safes in this room for the experience, or if you check in the toolbox, you find a key that will open all of them for you. There is nothing terribly stellar in these safes, just a lot of caps and ammunition. We can only hope that now that her agony is over, she can rest in peace. The next signal is the Super Mutant radio broadcast. This signal gets stronger if you travel southeast of Fallon's department store towards Shaw High School.
Humans, if out there and need help, we help you. Come to Shaw School Place. We promise not tear you limb from limb and eat you.
But I want to eat human.
Yes, I know you do. Look, I'm reading this exactly like you wanted. Remember? It's a trick. You're trying to trick them. With a lie.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Right, where was I? We not hurt you. We just want help you.
This has been a pre-recorded message. Message repeats in 3 seconds.
Yesterday I published a video on the full story of Shaw High School. It has a lot of pre-war interesting lore that I encourage you to check out. You can watch that video here. But in the cafeteria, you find a staircase that leads to the basement. In the far corner of the basement, we find a hatch. Inside the hatch, we find decapitated bodies hanging from the ceiling from hooks. On a desk, you can activate the ham radio to turn off the signal. In a stew pot on the ground, we find their heads floating. Despite their obvious stupidity, super mutants are clever enough to come up with a ruse to lure people to Shaw High School, and evidently it has worked. This butcher chamber is filled with corpses, and this leads us to the startling realization that all of the meat bags hanging from the ceilings and lining the hallways of Shaw High School are likely filled with human meat. What's most striking about this encounter is that the voice of the woman on the recording does not sound scared. If anything, she sounds playful or amused. It's likely that the super mutants killed her after recording the message. Indeed, we do find the corpse of a woman in the corner of the room. So why was she so calm on the radio? Companions will likely comment on this grisly scene, and I think we're all happy to leave it behind. The final signal is the Miller family radio signal. This signal gets stronger if you travel northeast of the radio tower.
Chuck, John, anyone out there? My family needs your help. We're trapped in our bunker, in John's salvage yard. Generator running the ventilation died, and now the hatch shut tight. Vacuum sealed. Please, someone. We're almost out of oxygen. The hatch is in the tipped train car. Please, start the generator. Kimmy, stay calm, honey. Breathe slowly. That's it. Slowly.
Big John's salvage is overrun with super mutants. There are nearly as many super mutants here as there were in the high school or in Fallon's, one of which uses a minigun, making clearing them some tough work. It looks like raiders had at one point occupied this salvage yard, as we find their corpses everywhere. On the floor in the middle of the salvage yard is a firing range, where we found one super mutant practicing his aim. There are raider corpses everywhere. They likely put this up themselves, but we also find many pre-war skeletons. You can walk up a series of ramps to a trailer that is perched on top of storage containers. Inside, after dealing with the super mutants, we find another raider corpse and a copy of Tales of a Junktown Jerky Vendor, which permanently improves prices when buying from vendors. It's here where we find the steamer trunk, and also a mini nuke and super mutant armor for Strong. There's an advanced lock safe in the nearby bus on the ground, and through a red door we find what looks like a super mutant hound pen, but I think it's been here for quite some time. We find lots of pre-war skeletons. Some are women in dresses, some are dressed in pre-war military garb. Could these be the corpses of Chuck and John, whom we heard on the Miller family radio signal? At the top of the house, we find a terminal called John Miller's Terminal. Inside, we find 3 notes from John Miller. The first note is from August 2nd. John spent a lot of time sealing up cracks in a trailer that apparently he buried underground. He and his wife Shelley were going to use this as a bomb shelter in case the worst happened. On September 15th, he tells us that he managed to get the ventilation set up, but he was having problems with the generator that powered it. It keeps shutting off for no obvious reason, he says. Whenever the generator shuts down, the ventilation fans in the shelter stop working, which somehow creates a vacuum, making it impossible for him to open the hatch to allow himself in and out. Many months later, on January 28th, he says that he thinks he figured out the generator ventilation issue. He and his wife know that something bad is coming, and he hopes that he never has to use the shelter. He made plans to sit his children down, Shane, who is 5, and Kimmy, who is 7, and tell them all about the shelter, but he admits he doesn't know how he's going to do it. How do you explain a bomb shelter to children? He wanted to make sure that they knew where the shelter was in case the worst happened, and so he made up a little rhyme that hopefully they would remember. In the tipped-over train, behind Dad's shop, climb up above and drop in the top. Apparently the kids liked that little rhyme. What's interesting about these is the dates. This last journal entry was made on January 28th, which was 9 months before the apocalypse actually happened, which means he had been setting up this bomb shelter the previous year. Looks like John Miller had extreme foresight, and he deeply cared about the well-being of his family to spend so much time and energy building this bomb shelter. So that leaves us with one question. Where is it? Well, if you climb to the top of his shop, we find a glowing red button. Pushing this button activates some nearby generators, and we can watch the hacked-together scrap gate open up. The terminal entry mentioned generators. Could this button have turned on the generators? We can follow some black power cords that lead from the gate behind the house and towards a big stack of boxes. If you follow the wires, you see them end at an overturned blue train car. Coming around the side, you can walk up a destroyed refrigerator to access the top. In the top, we find a hole that leads down to a hatch in the ground. But you still can't open it, trying to activate it, and you get a message saying the trap door is sealed shut. Well, it looks like this button we pushed was not the answer. Back outside, you can follow the wire back towards the workshop, and you notice that it partitions, one towards the door and one down towards the side of the building. Following it down, you find a rusty round generator with a circuit breaker. Open the lid and flip it to restore power to the ventilators. When you head back to the hatch, you find that it's open. It's not immediately apparent what happened when you enter. You find the ham radio nearby and you can activate it to switch it off. There's not much around here, tin cans, a lot of garbage, but when you turn around and walk past the ladder, we find them. The skeletal remains of John and Shelley Miller lying on a dirty mattress, holding each other in death. It appears that the worst has happened. Lying in a nearby open safe is a 10mm pistol. It looks like instead of ending their lives, the Millers held hope until the bitter end that they would be rescued. But around the corner, something catches our eye. A large opening in the trailer into the earth. And here we find the saddest sight of all. 2 graves. One with a catcher's mitt and a baseball for 5-year-old little Shane, and one with a teddy bear for 7-year-old Kimmy. When the bombs dropped, John and his wife Shelley met their kids at this bomb shelter and shut themselves in. After hours, days, we don't know, the generators shut off, which caused a vacuum in the chamber, which held the trapdoor shut. John used the ham radio to ask for help, but it looks like no one ever came. It's possible that the very people that they sent the recording to died here in Big John's Salvage. This also adds new disturbing significance to the existence of the 10mm pistol. To conserve air, could John have shot his family members one by one? Could he and his wife killed their own children and buried them? And then when things looked grim, John shot his wife to spare her the agony of suffocating to death? No, I do not think that's likely. We don't see blood splatter anywhere. In many other places in the game, Bethesda will leave blood splatter near suicides. We don't find any blood on the ground or on any of the walls, so my bet is that he had the pistol and chose not to use it. They did their best to breathe slowly, but they knew that the clock was ticking. First, 5-year-old Shane dies, then 7-year-old Kimmy dies. And their parents, knowing that by the simple act of breathing they likely killed their own children, dug the graves. It's hard to imagine what was going through John's mind as he lay there on the mattress with his wife, having just dug the graves for his 2 children. He built the shelter, he fixed the generator, he set up the ventilation, and it all went wrong. I wonder how many items on his mental checklist he went through trying to figure out where he went wrong. If only I had done X. If only I had done Y. And those were the thoughts on his mind as he and his wife suffocated to death. On a shelf near their corpses is the Big John Salvage key. Using this, you can go back to the workshop and unlock the wall safe underneath the cash register. Behind the desk is a locked closet, which has a duffel bag and a first aid kit inside. And then if you go back to the house next to the terminal, you can use the key to unlock the large safe. And that is the full and tragic story of Relay Tower 0SC-527 of Big John Salvage, Fallon's Department Store, and the Shaw High School. You know, I read all of the comments you make on my videos, and one commenter yesterday was so horrified by some of the pre-war behavior of the government, school officials, and other people in power that he offhandedly commented and said, "You know, I'm glad the nuclear apocalypse happened because all of these corrupt people deserved it," or something to that effect. And I was thinking about that while I was making this video, because on one hand he's right. There are so many pre-war institutions in this horrible Fallout world that were entirely corrupt and deserved to be destroyed. Vault-Tec, Hallucigen. Commenters will frequently say, is there any good pre-war company in this game? And really the only one I can think of is Vim in Far Harbor. They're really the only pre-war company I can think of that was in any way good. But then I see stories like this. Stories of simple jewelry store clerks who get trapped because of the bombs and die of thirst. Wandering do-gooders who race to a high school to save people out of the goodness of their heart, only to be eaten by super mutants. And a poor family of 4 who make a living at a scrapyard who end up dying from suffocation because the bombs fell. And I think no, it was not good for the nuclear apocalypse to happen. So many people died who did not deserve it by any means. Yes, there is horrible corruption and evil in the world, but there is also so much beauty and innocence and honesty that should be embraced and loved and protected despite the evil in the world. And I think that is the purpose of these really tragic side quests, to remind us of the simple lives of simple people simply trying to make a living in a harsh and unforgiving world. And hopefully this engenders within us all compassion. If you'd like to talk about this video with other like-minded individuals, check out the Oxhorn Community Discord server. I have an invitation link for you in the description of this video. That finishes my series on the relay towers, but stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. I have more places in Roxbury to explore, so be sure to subscribe so you get notified when I publish those videos. And if you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. Patreon subscribers gain access to a private channel on my Discord server, as well as a bunch of other cool Oxhorn perks. But more than anything, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just so glad that you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, as always, with a brand new video.